Okay, perfect. So I think we'll get going. It is recording, so if you don't want to appear on the recording, then do just bear that in mind. Hello everyone, I'm Sophie Stevens and I am the Future Pupil Programme Coordinator for the University of Law, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about Inns of Court and Scholarships. This is part 2 of the webinar series that we are doing with the University of Warwick. So part 1 focused on just the bar and sort of how to get there, becoming a barrister. This part is about Inns of Court and scholarship applications, and then the final portion in a couple of weeks will be on pupillage applications as well. So we will cover all aspects of becoming a barrister. As you can see, I currently work for the University of Law, but more importantly than that, I was a previous BPC student myself. I studied the bar practice course last year full-time at the London Bloomsbury campus, and alongside that I have a criminal pupillage lined up for October 2022, providing everything goes to plan. So I've been through the process myself, and I know how it feels to be looking at a career at the bar, and hopefully tonight I can talk you through sort of a brief assessment of the different inns, what you're going to be looking for when you're choosing those inns, and how to perhaps approach the interviews should you receive one, depending on the inn that you go for. So before we do that, I thought it would be worthwhile giving you a little bit of a recap as to your route to practice, just so we know where this sits in the bigger frame. Basically, if you're a non-law graduate like I was a history undergraduate at the University of Southampton. I then had to convert into a law degree basically and do a PGDL, as it's called. I actually incorporated a master's qualification with that, which the University of Law offers. So I actually did an MA law conversion course, but in essence, it's the same as the PGDL, and it teaches you the 7 core modules of law that you need to become a barrister. So if you're a non-law graduate studying something other than an LLB, you will need to complete the conversion course. If you are a law graduate and you've done your LLB, well, then you can move straight on to the bar practice course. And you can do that straight after your study, or you can take a gap year, whatever you might want to do. You can join the bar practice course at really any phase of your learning, providing that you've made sure that you've passed the 7 core principles of UK law. As you can see there, the one thing we're going to be talking about tonight is that you need to join an Inn of Court in order to do the bar practice course. And that means you must be a member of your Inn of choice by the time you start the course at whatever provider you choose to go with. So obviously the University of Law is not the only provider of the BPC or the BVC or the BPTC as it's known. It all means the same, but we all name it something different. But regardless of where you choose to study it, you do have to join an Inn of Court, and that's what we're going to be talking about, how you choose which one to join tonight. Once you complete the bar practice course, you will be called to the bar, and that will be done by your Inn of Court again, so they come into play there as well. And then once you've been called to the bar, you will move on to your pupillage, hopefully if you've secured one, and that usually lasts for 1 year or 18 months depending on the sort of pupillage you get. And then once you've completed pupillage, you make an application to Chambers for tenancy. So the we're concerned with tonight is the bit where we join in a court and how you make that decision, and what you do to get a scholarship from them, because obviously, as you will hopefully already know, the BPC itself is not government funded unless you choose to do a BPC LLM. Which we offer at the University of Law, but if not, the main source of funding for you is going to be an Inns of Court scholarship. So who are your 4 Inns of Court? Well, you've got Middle Temple, which I'm a member of. I received a Middle Temple Diplock scholarship for my bar practice course, and that was a portion of funding that helped me pay for the course that year. So yes, I am a Middle Templar. Hopefully I'm not too biased on the Middle Temple front this evening, but that is my chosen inn, and I can tell you why I chose them later. But there are 3 others as well. You have Gray's Inn, which is the smallest of the inns. They only take a lot less members than the other inns, and we'll come back to that shortly. You've got Lincoln's Inn, which is the biggest of the 4, and then you've got Inner just behind Lincoln's as the second largest of the inns. Middle just appropriately floats right in the middle. So yeah, they're all different in sizes, and that does affect the amount of awards that they do give. So it's something to bear in mind. With that, I would say check out Chambers Student. If you just have a Google and put Chambers Student in, Inns of Court or something, it will come up, but they give you quite a nice breakdown of the different things each inn is known for. It's a tiny bit out of date, but it's still a valuable resource. It was where I started my research on which inns and why I wanted to go there. And it definitely led me to sort of narrow them down to the 2 that I thought were most appropriately fitted for me. So if you haven't done that already, definitely start your search now. And yeah, choosing your inn is going to be one of those things that you probably think, well, how do I do it? Well, it can be quite difficult because there's not really one inn for most people that stands out. I know when I went into it, I wasn't really fussed where I went. I just wanted somewhere that I would feel like I was able to get a scholarship. So what I would say is be careful with listening to old school rhymes, such as this one. This is probably the most common one. What I would say is this dates back to sort of 300 years or so, and I would not recommend that you use it as a basis of your decision. If you do hear the rumors, the old school rumors about the inns, definitely do your research and try and figure out which one's for you. I once asked someone, if you were to give each inn a supermarket, which one would you be? Which one would they be? And they did seem to somehow compile an answer to that. But I think what I would say is, likening the inns to a supermarket is no more helpful than what you've currently got on the slide, which is a rhyme. So you do need to make an informed decision yourself. You need to either go visit them and get a feel for the inn, see how big it is, see where it is in London. Do you like it? Do you like the library? Those sort of silly things. And ask yourself a question of which inn do you think has the things that matters to you the most. So what should those things be? Well, they should include, I don't know why this is some reason in reverse. So we're going to look at the practical things first, then the other things. So apologies about that. But some practical things for you to consider are here. Firstly, scholarship selection process. Now, each inn has a different scholarship selection process. 2 of the inns do a paper sift before you are offered an interview, and 2 of the inns don't do that. They interview every candidate. So Inner and Middle will interview every single candidate that puts in an application to see how you fare at interview, whereas Gray's and Lincoln's will paper sift and then just interview the candidates that they think are the strongest from that paper sift. So if you're particularly good in interview, like I felt I was, you might want to consider Middle or Inner. But if you think you're pretty good on paper and your writing skills are really good at sort of arguing your case on the paper, then perhaps Lincoln's or Gray's is the one for you. So it's definitely important to think about the selection process and what they expect you to do to get through. Definitely think about your friends and the contacts in the inn. So I know for a fact that Middle has a lot of criminal barristers that come from Middle. I don't know why they all have criminal barristers, but I would say Middle does have a large proportion of it. And think about where your friends went. If you know someone at the inn, sometimes it's nice to start in an environment that you feel comfortable with. So do think about any relationships you already perhaps have, because that can be good stead for your application for a scholarship. Think about the opportunities they have for mooting and mentoring. Have you actually done any mooting or mentoring things with the inn already? Again, that's a strong case to say why you would like to join that inn. So I would definitely think about going to places that you've already liaised with. And have you actually got more opportunities through certain inns that will be helpful for you. So I know, for example, Middle has an advocacy weekend where they send you to a lodge while you're on the BPC. You go along and you get specialist advocacy training for sort of 3 days straight, and it's a brilliant weekend. Not every inn offers that. It was definitely something that drew me to Middle, and that's because I wanted to be a criminal barrister, and advocacy was really important to me. So different mooting opportunities present themselves through different inns, and different advocacy opportunities as well. So it's really important to see like what sort of moots are they running, what topics are they running on. Perhaps you're interested in the commercial chancery bar, and perhaps Lincoln's has a better commercial chancery moot than Middle. So those sort of things are definitely why you need to do your research. Again, the location, again, I've said before, Lincoln's Inn itself has many chancery sets, as does I believe Gray's as well, but each inn has its own sort of relationship with different sets. It produces a lot of barristers from certain sets. I don't know why that is, but it is something, as you delve deeper into your research, you will start to see. And more importantly than that, do the application questions suit you? So on the application, I remember for Middle, there was a really lovely question which I liked, which was, what one question would you want the panel to ask you? And I thought, oh, that's different. I like that. I can take control of the interview. The other applications didn't have that on there, and slowly I started to realize, no, this was the place I need to apply. So you will look at the application questions that each inn's asking. Go have a look. You can look at them online, and they should be on their website when you download the application form to apply. You shouldn't have to go through any loopholes to get those questions, and just think, you know, which application am I going to be able to stronger answer. Finally, the reference requirements, just check that you can meet them. Each, that is the last on that slide, so we'll go back, but just check that you can meet the reference requirements at each inn. Some want 2 academic references. Can you fulfill that? And some will give you 1 academic reference and 1 of your choice. So they're the practical things that you may want to consider in your quest to get a scholarship. But other things you may wish to consider is sort of the history of the inn, previous members. So I know Baroness Hale of Richmond, she was a member of Gray's Inn, and Sakia Starmer was a member of Middle Temple. So just to give you an idea, Mahatma Gandhi was a member of, I believe it was Inner, but I could be wrong. That's off the top of my head. I have no notes to hand, but famous people do become members and called to the bar by the inn, so perhaps that's something that interests you. The food, yes, each inn is renowned for different levels of being great for food and different prices, so it's something to consider. And the arts and the international aspect, what is the community going to be like for you at that inn? How diverse is it? Do you think it's somewhere you could see yourself maybe having a drink on a Friday night with some friends? So what scholarships do they offer? Well, they offer a range, but it pretty much falls into 2 categories: PGDL scholarships for those who are going to do a conversion course, or the MA Law, obviously, as well, and BPC scholarships, which are the predominant ones that you should be thinking about. They also offer some pupillage award top-ups for if you get pupillage and it's under a certain amount and you don't think you can live off of it, and post-BPC travel and internship bursaries as well. It is important to note that each inn does offer some extra scholarships that don't fall within the same scheme at all the inns. So a really good example is the PASS scheme by Inner Temple, which is the Pegasus Access Award scheme. And in essence, it's there to help you gain funding for if you've come from an underprivileged background, and it will give you an opportunity to gain more money than you would at perhaps a different inn. So that's unique to Inner Temple. Again, Middle Temple's access to the Bar Award, the I can't say the word, but the prize at Lincoln's Inn. It's been a long day, so I apologise. But again, these are all specialist scholarships tailored to each inn, so I would definitely do some research at which one you think may suit you, and we'll give you another opportunity to have a look at. So we're going to now delve a little bit deeper into each inn. To start with, we're going to look at the Gray's Inn scholarships for the bar practice course. You can see it's full total of members there and student ratio, and 1.3 million available with residential scholarships. Now, I emphasize the residential scholarships because, again, not every inn offers a residential scholarship. It is something that's unique to Grays and Lincoln's. So if you apply for mid or inner, there won't be any chance of you getting residency as part of your scholarship award. So you will have to find a place to stay yourself. But they are expected to award 75 to 85 scholarships this year. So for those who've applied in 2021, for 2022 scholarships, they're predicting to give out that many, and the awards range between £5,000 and £30,000. Now, you can see the dates here from last year. They haven't released the dates for this year yet, so I've popped them on there just to give you an idea of the deadlines still, but nothing's been refreshed yet because they're in the process of interviewing applicants currently for this year's set of scholarships. And with Grays, you're going to need one academic and one professional who have both known you for 12 months, and that will be the references that they require by the application deadline. And as I've said before, they look for you to be strong on paper and strong in interview, so they do sift before you get an interview. So they also offer, obviously, the PGDL. So if you're interested in those, again, 25 to 35 of those are expected to be awarded this year. So it will mirror again, hopefully next year, or it may even go up. The application window is still open for this. So if you're thinking about doing a conversion course, you're not too late to apply. And the highest financial awards value is £12,000 and £10,000, and the lowest level award for the PGDL is £2,500. Now, one thing that's really great about getting a PGDL scholarship, a conversion course scholarship from Grays, is that if you get that, you are automatically qualified for a bar course scholarship interview, so you won't be paper sifted like the other candidates. And if you're successful in that BPC scholarship interview after your PGDL, you will automatically get a starting price point for the award at £7,500. So it's definitely good if you're thinking about doing the conversion course to apply for that before the BPC year. So now we're going to look a little bit at Grays. As I said, a lot bigger, 25,000 members with 650 students, 1.8 million available, and it does also have residential scholarships. How they've released how much is attributed to each. So 1.5 million for the BPC and 173,000 for the PGDL. And it is important that they do have a strong international base at Lincoln's Inn. They do offer international scholarships and bursaries and prizes for performance on the bar course as well, and internships abroad. So they do pride themselves on their international rapport, Lincoln's. Again, you're required to do 2 references, one academic and one professional. And they, again, application sift before interview. So very, very similar to Grays in that structure and format. In 2021, they awarded 115 scholarships, so a few more than the ones at Grays. And again, the opening for that was September 2021, so it will be September 2022 this year for next year. And something you will know is that they all close on the same day, and the year just gone, it was the 5th of November, but by gospel, it's always the first Friday in November. So whatever the first Friday is in 2022, that will be the deadline for Inns of Court scholarship applications this year in advance for 2023. Again, Lincoln's offers a PGDL scholarship awards as well. Around 32 were awarded in 2021. And as I've said before, you're still in time for those. But here you will note that I've put at 1 p.m. and that's because some of the inns do specify the time on that day when they want it submitted by. So once you've made your decision on the inn, it is really important to keep track of when they want it all done by. Now we move on to middle, and middle's only got one slide similar to inner just because there's just a bit less information online about them, but it's got 6,000 members and around 500 students. 1.25 million was awarded in 2021, but there's no residential scholarships. It was approximately apportioned between 1.1 million for the BPC and 90,000 for the PGDL. References, there is no specification on the website, but what I can tell you was I had to do one academic reference and one of my choice. And they interview every applicant. So if you put in an application with Middle, you will be interviewed. You're not paper sifted, and they ask you questions based off of your application in interview. And again, the size of the awards for Middle are not published. And this is because they tend to appropriate the amount to how much you need. So Middle's awards are heavily means tested. So what that means is if you get the top award, say the Queen Mother Scholarship, but you only need £3,000, then you will only get your £3,000. It's not the case that you've got the top award, you will get £20,000 because you got that top award. Conversely, at Lincoln's, if you get the top award, say the Lord Denning, that automatically gives you, I think it's £15,000. So the awards do appropriate to their name, and the money and all of that fits at Lincoln's, whereas at Middle it doesn't. It's heavily means tested depending on what you need. So we've just spoke about that there. And in a similar way to Middle, 12,000 members, around 300 students, approximately 1.8 million available, no residential scholarships. It was apportioned with 1.6 million to the BPC and 200,000 for the PGDL. And again, you will need 2 referees, academic or professional, who this time have known you for 6 months. So notice the difference there between grades. They wanted you to know someone for 12, and for inner it's 6 months. And they do have specialist disability awards at Inner Temple as well. So if you are a DSA student, again, something you might wish to investigate, and they do interview every applicant, as mentioned before. They award around 100 BPC scholarships a year and around 36 PGDL scholarships a year. So once you've decided where you want to apply out of those and which one fits you best, what is the criteria they're going to be looking for? Well, to start off with, it tends to come under these 4 categories. So your intellectual ability, your motivation to succeed at the bar, your potential as an advocate, and any personal qualities that you can bring that shows your journey to the bar. So what's included in intellectual ability? Well, your grades, of course, your ability to analyse complex factual matters, your written communication, which will be judged on your paper application, and any extracurricular involvement. So mooting competitions you've run, have you written an essay and won a prize, that sort of thing. Have you done any extra research projects that have been published? And that's sort of how they judge your overall intellectual ability. Obviously, grades heavily factor into that. I say that, but then, you know, I wasn't a straight A-star student. I had ABB at A-level. I never, you know, would claim to be a huge academic, but grades do come into it as well. And then they'll look at your motivation to succeed at the bar, pretty much why you want to be a barrister. So what has triggered your ambition to pursue such a competitive industry? That's something you would definitely have to have an answer to. Any networking that you've already done with within the profession. So have you been to events with chambers? Have you done any mini pupilages to prove that you're really invested in this career? And how much knowledge of the profession have you already gained? So again, through mini pupilages, through online events, so watching things online or taking part in online moots. It doesn't have to always be in person, but anything that can give you the knowledge, voluntary experience, for example, legal advice clinic, that sort of thing. Sitting in court can also be a great way to get some exposure to the profession. I did it for a bit because I didn't have a lot of mini experience at one point, and I just went and sat into my local court and listened to the work of criminal barristers, and that gave me something to talk about. And any again, employment and pro bono that sort of fits the legal profession is also good at showing your motivation for the bar. This sort of goes without saying, but your advocacy should be sort of inbred into you. You want to be a barrister at the end of the day, you're going to have to be a strong advocate. So this is obviously shown orally, but also in your writing, so in your paper application, that you can think clearly about your answers. And this is judged usually in interview when they ask you a scenario question or something to do with a current affair, to see if you can argue your case and think clearly on that point. Are you succinct in what you say, or are you waffling? Are you sticking to your point and getting it out clearly? And again, sticking to your guns. They will try to push you in interview to try and derail you onto their way of thinking, but it's about saying, I appreciate your point, but instead, I think this is more important and this is why, and sticking with that. And then finally, your personal qualities. Can you cope under pressure? Are you reliable? Are you an independent worker who can be coping with the pressures of the daily life at the bar and juggling your workload? Do you uphold a level of integrity? Are you good at problem solving? When have you shown that? And when have you shown that drive and determination in your daily life, which will cross apply to your career as a barrister? So the application, just by way of reminder, it will be the first Friday in November. The year just gone, it was the 5th, but again, it will be the first Friday in November. And for the GDL, or I should have a little P before it, PGDL as it's now known, is the first Friday in May, so the 6th. And again, don't forget your reference requirements for both. So now we're going to move on to sort of my top tips for writing applications and approaching this, and sort of how you move forward going into this process. My biggest tagline before I talk to you about anything further is, please don't try and fit the mold. It's really important when you do these applications, both for pupillage and for the INS and for interview phase, with anything to do with the bar, that you try and show them an accurate representation of yourself. I pride my success on the fact that I was always who I am, and I always like to do everything with a smile. I don't, I am different. I am dyslexic. I have, a very different background. I went into theatre, then history, then law. So I pride myself on who I am, and rather than trying to fit the mold that people think is the bar. So that's just my biggest tagline. And how that shapes up is not comparing yourself to what you think is the ideal candidate. So I've been open here. I've put what my sort of main things on my CV are, that will be, that I would naturally at the beginning compare to sort of the Oxbridge double firsts and, an LLM from Harvard. And I thought that's what you had to be a barrister. But very quickly I started to realize, having been through the INS process, then getting a scholarship, I was like, oh, wow, like, you don't have to be that to succeed at this. So please, know where you've got to fill the gaps in your applications, because naturally we all have to do a bit of mooting, we all have to do a bit of work experience. But if you don't have 4 A stars at A level and you don't have a double first, please don't worry, you can still be successful and be a barrister. So I just wanted to emphasize that right now. So with that in mind, how do you go and write a really strong INS application? Well, you need to treat yourself as the client, and this is going to come up again when we look at pupillage applications as well, but you have to build your best case, just as you would build a case for a client. So you want to, you can't avoid the unhelpful facts, they exist. So if you've failed an assessment and you've got a D, and that's not what you were aiming for, then they are unhelpful to your application. But you also have to embrace that that's part of your journey, and it's about looking at trying to just utilize the helpful facts and the things that you have done that are going to help you get where you need to be. So have you perhaps had extra marks in a particular essay or modules? Well, definitely highlight those. Have you done any mooting or debating competitions, or any form of acting and public speaking is great to show your advocacy? Have you done part-time work? Now, I used to use this a lot very early on in my journey to the bar, because I took pride in that I had worked since 16 and held down a part-time job alongside study the entire way through, which meant that I was liaising with a lot of the general public every day, and I was able to juggle that work balance, so that work-life balance alongside study. So it's really important that you think about everything that you've done rather than just thinking about the legal things. And yes, your extracurricular activities are important. My chosen question on the Middle Temple application form was, how do the tenets of Taekwondo relate to being a barrister? And I brought in the fact that I had done martial arts for 16 years, and that, you know, the discipline and resilience and the fighting spirit that I had learned there would be transferable to the bar. So not only was it something interesting and something that I'm passionate about, it was something that I could relate to the bar. So definitely think about that. And if you have unhelpful facts, but you have a reason for that, so such as you got a really poor result in one of those modules because you suffered a bereavement or something, and there's an opportunity for you to put in mitigation and it's genuine mitigation, then do make sure you include it, because it's important that they know. So once you've thought about your helpful and unhelpful facts, you need to present your cats. You are not going to present any cats in your application, but you are going to present some facts rather than fantasy. So you have to be truthful in these applications and don't make anything up. They will know if it's exactly what you've done, or they will know if you're just, you know, fabricating. They've read so many of these applications over the years. So only use evidence. Don't make broad and brash claims. Show them, don't tell them. So the example here is really great for this. And I use it again in the pupillage session, so it will come back, so I reinforce it into everyone's brains. But I am a passionate defender of women's rights. Compared to when I volunteered with the National Centre for Domestic Violence, this helped me understand the issues surrounding the plight of abused women. You've told them in the second part about your volunteering experience, and you've told them what it is that interests you about domestic violence as well. So that's much stronger than the top line there. So avoid hyperbole, be concise, and be real rather than abstract. Please do not as well include anything to do with television shows or things you've watched, such as Suits. That's an absolute no. You must stick with UK law, and you must stick with real things that have influenced your experience and why you are pursuing the bar. You also need to do this in the most succinct way possible. So you need to get to the point and get to it quickly. Please remember that everything at the bar, even if they give 250 words, they would actually much rather you do it in 180. It's not a goal to reach the 250. If you can say it in 180, then please do. It saves them a lot of time. You've got to the point and you've showed them that, you know, you can write and draft like a barrister. So use active verbs for this, so that you understood, you observed in this mini pupillage. I researched on this area of law. I was able to compare and analyze. Anything like that is brilliant. And you need to persuade them to your point of view as well. So persuasion needs to come and trickle through this application throughout, because at the end of the day, you're persuading them to give you a massive chunk of money so that you can go on and study for the career that you've always wanted to do. I'm not going to spend too long on the example there, because I want to allow us to have some time for questions at the end, but there is another example there for you, and you can see how the word count has been cut down in the second part, because it's got straight to the point rather than waffling on. So evidence everything. Without evidence, your claims will be empty. Use your experiences, your achievements to persuade for you. They will make your application stronger. It will make it more authentic and unique, because they will be real life things that you've done that persuade them to interview you or to give you a scholarship. Anything ideological suggests a level of naivety and lack of experience. So they will not they will not mark it, and it won't make you stand out. So try and just stick to the point and what you do know about the profession. Don't try and be clever. Don't try and use long words. They would much rather you just say what you mean. And remember, the career is itself centered on client services and creating outcomes for people. So think about that. Think about what you're actually going to be doing in the day-to-day of this job, and try and go beyond just the academic level. I very much came into this thinking of it, you know, in its sort of fantasy way rather than the realism of the profession. And I think that could have definitely helped me a lot earlier on had I thought about how much it was centered on the client services and what I would be doing day in, day out at the criminal bar. So just 2 points on the drafting style before we move on to a few top tips for interview. Your application must be flawless. I say that, and then I'm severely dyslexic, which is why I don't always say words correctly, and I don't always write things exactly how it should be written. But by the time it goes in, you've somehow got to crack that. And what I did was I got lots of people to proofread it. I got lots of support from ULaw at the time, because I was studying on the MA Law conversion, to ensure that I had good grammar, punctuation, and spelling. So whoever it might be that you need to get it proofread by, get it proofread. It's really important that it's flawlessly presented. You must also demonstrate that you are able to draft like a barrister. So one day you'll hopefully be doing skeleton arguments and things like that for a real life client, and therefore it should be concise and persuasive, and your writing in your application form needs to reflect that. Now we're going to move on to the interview and what they may or may not ask in there. Well, a good thing to look at for the interview is that actually there's some stuff on YouTube, on ULaw's YouTube channel, and there's also a Gray's In video that I watched on scholarships explaining the process, obviously for Gray's In, but it's still good to get an idea of what they look for and how it's actually done. So definitely check out YouTube. There is some Inns of Court scholarship stuff on there. But what are my tips? Well, firstly, if you do it in person, although I didn't have that luxury, do not shake hands with the interviewers. It's an old school tradition, actually, that barristers don't shake hands. And this has also been sort of sorted by social distancing and respect for cultural beliefs. So it also time saves in the turnaround between interviews. So just remember, don't shake hands with the interviewers when you go into the interview room. If you're in a waiting room with lots of people, lots of candidates, don't psych yourself out and psych others out. You know, be there to support each other, make small talk. There's no point getting into each other's heads. You all want the same thing. You all have the same drive at the end of the day. So that's really important before you go in. And whether you're online or in person, do smile and be yourself. As I said, I liked to smile a lot in my interview because it showed that I wasn't a robotic person, that I was human, and I was confident in what I was saying. So there's a difference as well between confidence and arrogance. And I think it's really important to, remain confident in what you're doing, but also listen to the questions that you're being asked and try and nod along and respond to them as well. And make sure you get ready early or get there early. It's really important. And that you're also dressed correctly. So it's a suit or smart business attire. And when I say smart business attire, that basically means a suit. But as a woman, we don't really sometimes wear suits. So a nice light dress, black dress and black blazer is also fine. But yes, you need to look like a lawyer. Please, as well, don't feel rushed. I would pause after every single question to try and make sure I answered it appropriately. The pause will feel a lot longer for you than it will for them, and it will actually give them time to jot down any notes that they want to make. So do pause before answering the questions. And don't assume that they've read every inch of your form. You don't want to repeat it word for word, but if there's something really interesting on that form that you can then use again in your answer, don't be afraid to use it. They may not have actually seen that part of your form. So it's important to be very clued up on your form and know exactly what you've put in those answers, because you will be challenged on them in the interview. So what are the potential questions? Well, they will be about the bar and you will get some form of why do you want to be a barrister, or why do you want to be a criminal barrister, or what interests you specifically, something like that. Why not a solicitor advocate has been one. So if you say that advocacy is why you want to be a barrister, be prepared for them to throw back at you, well, why not just become a solicitor advocate then? Why do you want to work in crime, family, civil, commercial, chancery, land? If you've put a specific area of law on there, you will be more than likely challenged on why that specific area of law. I certainly was, and I had a criminal barrister on my panel. Tell us about the challenges facing the bar currently and how you would overcome them. Yes, they like to see if you understand what's going on in the world of the bar at the moment, and they like to see that you're keeping up to date with current affairs and things that are going on in your profession. There are also sometimes exercises in the interviews. So it can be a statute plus a fact pattern, and they're asking you to come to a result on that piece of statute. It can be a case analysis. Again, this is different for each inn. I know at Middle we weren't given an exercise at all. We just had a standard interview. However, some inns do want you to do this. A question could be more on a debate topic. So what law would you change and why would you change it? As I've said, debate topics are very common. You could be given a statement and asked to persuade them of one side of that argument. What I would say is with debate questions, be structured in that argument. Try to give them 3 separate lines of argument. So I'm going to argue that you should bathe in a pot of baked beans every night for the following 3 reasons. 1, because it's good for your skin. It's been proven in a study that you can, benefit from bathing in baked beans. 2, it will help relax your muscles, things like that. That sort of structure, that's what they're looking for. Not the best example, but for some reason my brain's thinking about baked beans. So don't try to just put facts and figures out, though. Do try and persuade them by structuring different topics of your argument. And if they do show any weak points to you, like if they say to you, well, that's a bit weak, we don't think that, say, yeah, I acknowledge that. Be able to, concede if necessary, but try to remain strong in that argument, and don't give them a wish-washy answer. They don't want, well, yeah, it could be this, but it also could be this. They want a yes or no, and then they'll challenge you on it. So you will also get, more than likely, a current legal affairs. I got one on COVID and prisons, and whether or not we should be remanding people in custody pending trial when there's COVID outbreaks and they may not even be guilty. So that's what I was given. So how do you answer a question like that? Well, address the question, not the topic. Make sure you answer what they are asking you. If you don't understand the question and it's thrown you a little bit, well, then ask for clarification, or for them to, could they perhaps rephrase? If they ask hypothetical questions, they are there to assess how you structure your thoughts and how you can persuade. So sometimes it's less about the topic and more about how you actually argue. See, I am really bad. You need to try and iron out as many fillers that you have beforehand. It gets better with time. When I started, I was really bad for it, but I do try to take pauses now before umming, so that I can ensure that I've got rid of the fillers that would usually be there. Show some personality. I've said that before. And your body language is also really important. They will be judging you in interview, how you conduct yourself, whether they see a future barrister in you. So do act, confident, smiley, relaxed if you can. I know that's really easy to say, but it is important that you show a good version of yourself, and you be confident that you've already got this far, which is also fantastic. So that's all for me in terms of the talking portion. I've now allowed a little bit of time for some questions. So if anyone wants to put any questions, I can see there's 2 things in the chat already. I'm not sure if they are questions, but I'm happy to answer them for you. And yeah, I will stop the recording so that